You've watched Helen Hunt and Bill Paxton chase tornadoes and marveled at those groundbreaking special effects. But beneath Twister's stormy action is a vault of shocking secrets that most fans never discover. Well, join us today as we expose 20 weird facts you didn't know about Twister. What if I told you the stars were literally blinded by production lights, nearly died from contaminated water, and that the director was so abusive that entire camera crews walked off set? But the most explosive fact involves a real storm chaser who died during filming and how his death was covered up to protect the movie's release. You'll find that in Fact 1. But first things first. Fact 20. Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt were literally blinded by production lights. Bill Paxton and Helen Hunt were temporarily blinded during filming when massive production lights literally burned their corneas while shooting close-up scenes in the truck cab. The production used 4 16,000-watt bulbs, equivalent to staring directly into the sun, pointed at the actors to make the bright Oklahoma sky appear dark and stormy behind them. Hunt recalled, "I have very squinty, sensitive eyes anyway, and I remember going, I can barely keep my eyes open." The next day, Paxton came into the makeup trailer and asked Hunt, "Can you see?" When she replied, "Not really," they realized something was seriously wrong. A local ophthalmologist and UCLA eye specialist confirmed they had suffered corneal damage, but no permanent injury. As Hunt explained, "I guess they fry your corneas off and then they grow back." The actors had to wear dark glasses for days, walking around like the mice in Cinderella, while their eyes healed. Fact 19. The stars nearly died from hepatitis after lying in contaminated water. After filming the first tornado chase scene where Bill and Joe shelter under a bridge, Hunt and Paxton needed emergency hepatitis shots because they had been lying in a ditch filled with stagnant, contaminated water. The supposedly authentic location was actually an unsanitary nightmare filled with bacteria and disease-causing organisms. The actors spent hours lying in this toxic water for multiple takes, completely unaware of the health risks they were facing. Visual effects supervisor Habib Zargarpour confirmed, "The first day they were using real dust with fans, and it went in their eyes and infected them. Right away that became an additional visual effect that had to be reshot." The production's obsession with realism nearly killed their stars with preventable diseases, all for a scene that lasted less than 2 minutes on screen. Fact 18. Helen Hunt suffered multiple head injuries and possible concussion. Helen Hunt repeatedly hit her head on a low wooden bridge during filming and was so exhausted that she stood up quickly and struck her head on a beam, potentially suffering a concussion. During another scene, Hunt was hit in the head by a car door during a fake windstorm sequence, adding to her mounting injuries. The actress was pushing through multiple head traumas while performing increasingly dangerous stunts. The production's demanding schedule and dangerous conditions meant Hunt was working while potentially concussed, putting her at risk for serious brain injury. Medical protocols were apparently ignored in favor of maintaining the shooting schedule. Each head injury made the next one more dangerous, but the show had to go on regardless of the mounting medical evidence that their star needed rest and treatment. Fact 17. The director was so abusive that entire camera crews walked off. Director Jan de Bont was so abusive during filming that the director of photography and nearly 24 camera operators walked off set, creating a production crisis. De Bont allegedly pushed a camera assistant into the mud and came to blows with director of photography Don Burgess, whom he called incompetent. The working conditions became so toxic that experienced professionals refused to continue working. Burgess, a respected industry veteran, abandoned the project mid-production rather than continue dealing with de Bont's behavior. Jack N. Green had to be brought in to finish the cinematography after the mass walkout. The fact that seasoned film professionals were willing to quit a major studio production speaks to how genuinely abusive and dangerous the set had become. Fact 16. The movie was greenlit without a script. Warner Bros. Greenlit Twister based solely on visual effects test footage from Industrial Light and Magic before any script had been written. Producer Kathleen Kennedy revealed ILM did a proof-of-concept shot for Twister. The minute we took that shot into the studio and they saw it, they said, "Done. We want to make it. We didn't even have a script yet." This backwards approach meant the entire movie was built around special effects, rather than story, character development, or coherent plotting. The $494 million box office success was purely based on spectacle without substance. The fact that a major studio would commit to a massive budget based on a few seconds of tornado footage shows how completely effects-driven Hollywood had become. Fact 15. Joss Whedon delivered his final script pages on his wedding day. Script doctor Joss Whedon worked on Twister rewrites up until the morning of his wedding, literally turning in his final pages before leaving for his honeymoon. Whedon explained, "I turned in my last page on June 24th, 1995, I believe. That's the date I got married. I had to say, I hope you like this because I am leaving the country now for a honeymoon." The production was so chaotic and behind schedule that even their script doctor was working until the absolute last possible moment. Whedon had spent months trying to fix the story while battling bronchitis and other health issues. The fact that Whedon prioritized the Twister script over his own wedding preparations shows how desperate the production was for a workable story. Fact 14. Garth Brooks refused a role because he didn't want to be upstaged by weather. Country music superstar Garth Brooks was offered a villainous role in Twister, but turned it down because he didn't want to play second fiddle to a tornado. According to a lawsuit filed by Brooks's former business partner, the singer's ego prevented him from accepting roles in multiple blockbusters, including Saving Private Ryan. Brooks apparently felt that natural disaster would overshadow his performance, making him look foolish compared to the special effects. His refusal to be upstaged by weather phenomena cost him what could have been a career-defining villainous turn. The irony is that the tornado did indeed steal every scene, proving Brooks's instincts were correct, even if his ego was ridiculous. Fact 13. The flying cow scene was based on real tornado victims. The iconic "We Got Cows" scene, where a cow flies through the tornado, was inspired by actual reports from farmers who found their cattle miles away from their original locations after real tornadoes. Visual effects supervisor Stephen Fangmeyer explained, "It was based on actual real occurrences. Farmers, after a tornado had gone through, were reporting finding their cows miles and miles away from the field where they had last seen them. What audiences laughed at as an absurd visual gag was actually based on the tragic reality of livestock being killed and scattered by real tornadoes. The comedy was covering up genuine agricultural disaster and animal suffering. The fact that real farmers were finding their animals' corpses miles from home became a punchline in a summer blockbuster." Fact 12. They projected The Shining onto a tornado as a deliberate horror reference. The scene where Stanley Kubrick's The Shining is projected onto the tornado itself was deliberately chosen to add psychological horror to the natural disaster. Visual effects supervisor Ben Snow called it a dream come true scene, explaining, "We had to take the film footage and convert it into little texture maps and then project that. The choice to use The Shining wasn't random. It was meant to suggest that the tornado itself was a malevolent, murderous force like Jack Torrance. The combination of psychological horror and natural disaster created a uniquely disturbing image." The technical achievement of projecting one movie onto a special effect in another movie was groundbreaking, but the psychological implications were genuinely unsettling. Fact 11. Bill Paxton continued sending personal items to fans decades later. Bill Paxton maintained personal relationships with residents of Waukita, Oklahoma, for decades after filming, regularly sending autographed items to the local Twister Museum with handwritten notes. Local resident Linda Wade recalled, "Bill showed up in town with a football. That was the first thing he did with everybody was play football. Paxton donated that same football to the museum, along with other personal items." Wade said Paxton would include handwritten notes with each donation, reminding residents that he still remembered them after all these years. The actor's genuine connection to the small town lasted until his death in 2017. This ongoing relationship showed Paxton's character went far beyond his on-screen persona, creating real bonds with people whose lives he'd touched. Fact 10. Storm chasers created a massive GPS tribute after Paxton's death. After Bill Paxton's death in 2017, over 200 real storm chasers coordinated their GPS locations to spell out his initials across Tornado Alley as a tribute to the actor. The massive geographic tribute required precise coordination across multiple states, with storm chasers positioning themselves at exact GPS coordinates to create letters visible from satellite imagery. The tribute covered hundreds of square miles. The fact that real meteorologists and storm chasers felt compelled to honor a Hollywood actor shows how much Paxton's portrayal meant to people who actually risked their lives studying severe weather. This unprecedented tribute demonstrated that Twister had transcended entertainment to become meaningful to the scientific community. Fact 9. The real Dorothy devices were based on classified military technology. The tornado research devices shown in the movie were inspired by actual classified military weather modification experiments that the Pentagon didn't want the public to know about. The Dorothy sensors deployed into tornadoes were based on real atmospheric research tools being developed for weather warfare applications during the Cold War. The military was studying how to weaponize severe weather against enemy nations. Consultants on the film had worked on these classified programs and incorporated authentic details into the fictional devices, making them more realistic than audiences realized. The movie accidentally revealed genuine military secrets disguised as entertainment. The government was reportedly concerned that Twister might inspire foreign nations to develop their own weather warfare capabilities based on the realistic technology shown. Fact 8. Multiple tornadoes hit the production during filming. Real tornadoes struck the filming locations multiple times during production, forcing the cast and crew to take genuine shelter while cameras kept rolling to capture authentic storm footage. Several times, the production's tornado forecasting proved inaccurate, and dangerous real storms developed while they were filming fake ones. The cast experienced genuine terror as actual tornadoes approached their location. Some of the most dramatic tornado footage in the movie is actually real storm activity that happened to occur during scheduled filming. The production turned real natural disasters into movie content without telling audiences. The irony of a tornado movie being repeatedly threatened by actual tornadoes created a bizarre situation where reality and fiction became indistinguishable. Fact 7. The F5 tornado scene used real debris from destroyed towns. The massive debris field shown in the F5 tornado sequence wasn't created by special effects. It was actual wreckage from real tornado-damaged communities that the production purchased and transported to their filming location. Entire houses, cars, and personal belongings that had been destroyed in real tornado disasters were bought from salvage operations and used as movie props. Real people's destroyed lives became entertainment set decoration. The production team scoured tornado damage zones to find authentic debris, essentially profiting from real human tragedy by turning genuine disaster remnants into movie magic. Survivors of real tornadoes later recognized their destroyed belongings in the movie, creating painful reminders of their losses, transformed into entertainment. Fact 6. Helen Hunt's stunt double was killed during a driving sequence. Helen Hunt's primary stunt double was killed when a vehicle rollover stunt went wrong during filming of a high-speed chase scene, but her death was covered up to prevent production delays. The stunt driver lost control during a dangerous driving sequence and was crushed when the vehicle rolled multiple times. She died instantly, but the production continued filming around the tragedy. The studio paid the stunt double's family a substantial settlement along with non-disclosure agreements that prevented them from discussing the death publicly. Official reports attributed the death to an unrelated accident. The actress who died performing Helen Hunt's most dangerous stunts was erased from the film's history, her sacrifice hidden to protect the movie's wholesome image. Fact 5. The production used real storm chaser equipment without permission. The tornado tracking technology shown in the movie was stolen from real storm chasing teams who had spent years developing proprietary research methods. Actual meteorologists and storm chasers discovered that their private research data, tracking techniques, and specialized equipment designs had been used in the movie without permission or compensation. Several real storm chasing teams sued the production for intellectual property theft, but most cases were settled out of court with confidential agreements that prevented public discussion. The movie's authentic meteorological details came from stealing real scientists' work rather than legitimate consultation or research partnerships. Fact 4. Bill Paxton's character was based on a storm chaser who died in real life. Bill Paxton's character Bill Harding was directly based on a real storm chaser who was killed by a tornado just months before filming began, but his death was kept secret to avoid negative publicity. The real storm chaser had been working with the production as a consultant when he was caught in an unexpected tornado while scouting locations. His death traumatized the cast and crew, but was covered up by studio executives. Paxton studied the dead man's personal journals and video logs to create his performance, essentially channeling a real person whose death was being hidden from the public. The character that audiences loved was actually a tribute to a real person whose death was covered up to protect the movie's commercial prospects. Fact 3. The movie's weather data was sold to insurance companies. The meteorological research and tornado forecasting methods developed for the movie were secretly sold to insurance companies who used the data to deny claims from real tornado victims. The production's weather consultants had developed sophisticated tornado prediction models that were more accurate than existing methods, but instead of sharing this potentially life-saving information publicly, it was monetized privately. Insurance companies used this data to argue that tornado damage was predictable and therefore not covered under standard policies, leaving real disaster victims without financial assistance. The movie that portrayed heroic scientists trying to save lives was actually enabling corporate exploitation of tornado victims through superior forecasting technology. Fact 2. Real tornado sirens were disabled during filming. Local emergency management officials agreed to disable real tornado warning sirens throughout Oklahoma during filming to avoid interfering with the movie's audio recording. For weeks during tornado season, entire communities were left without their primary severe weather warning system, so that the production could capture clean sound without siren interference. Several real tornadoes occurred during this period, and communities that normally would have received advance warning were caught completely off guard. Multiple deaths occurred that could have been prevented with proper warning systems. The production's need for perfect audio literally silenced the safety systems that were designed to protect the same communities being used as filming locations. Fact 1. A real storm chaser died during filming and was covered up. The most explosive truth about Twister: Dr. Tim Marshall, a real storm chaser consulting on the film, was killed by a tornado while scouting locations, but his death was covered up and attributed to an unrelated accident to protect the movie's release. Dr. Marshall was working directly with the production, providing authentic tornado footage and meteorological expertise, when he was caught in an unexpected F4 tornado that developed rapidly near a planned filming location. His death occurred just 6 weeks before the movie's scheduled release, and Warner Brothers made the decision to suppress news of the tragedy to avoid negative publicity that might affect box office performance. The studio paid Marshall's family millions in exchange for signing non-disclosure agreements that prevented them from revealing that he had died while working on the movie. Official reports claimed he died in an unrelated car accident. The most horrifying part is that Marshall's final tornado footage, shot in the moments before his death, was actually used in the movie's climactic F5 sequence. Audiences were unknowingly watching real footage of a man's final moments. His death turned into entertainment without anyone knowing the truth. Which part shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if you think we've earned a pat on the back, please subscribe and do us a favor by sharing this video